Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to start with the third mimer of Nesivos Shalom on Parsha Chayei. And it starts with the Medrash Tanchuma. The Medrash says on the pasuk Vayavo Avram lispod l'Sorah, and Avram came to eulogize Sorah. Okay, Avram came to eulogize Sorah, and it says he started to cry, and he started to say Eishes Chayil. So Eishes Chayil that is in Proverbs in Mishlei, Avram was the one who started to say it. He started to say this on his wife, and we know that quite a few of Psukim are very easy to be referred to Sarah Imenu, our first and matriarch. So it says he said the whole parak, the whole parak from Aleph to Taf of Eishes Chayil, and it says that there is a problem. If you look at it, some of the psukim, it says that it's referring to things that it doesn't seem to make sense. And there's three of the psukim that we're going to go through that the Nesivos Shalom mentions. It says, it says that Sarah Imenu, it says that she decided to purchase a field of a field, and she bought it, and then she actually bought it. She purchased it. She acquired it. So it says that it's going on the sadeh of Sdei Machpelah, which is where she was buried. Now we know that purchase happened after she passed away. So how is it possible to say that she had anything to do with it? It was after she passed away, right? That's number one. And then it says afterwards, it says, Loisira levesa mishaleg yichol beisa lavu shanim. In the pasuk in the lamed of Eishes Chayil, it says that she doesn't have what to worry, what to be afraid of on her household, the people in the household from shaleg, from snow, because all of her house was having colorful clothing. And what does that mean? Shaleg is a reference to Gehenna, hell. Okay, snow. We would think that it's the opposite because the Goyim think that it's whatever they say, how it's burning in hell, whatever. We don't understand what it is, and we should never know. But it's referring to, when it says Sheleg, it's referring to Gehenna, and she doesn't have anything to worry about because called Beisa Lavu Shanim, that her whole house is dressed with colorful clothing, and the Medrash, it says that it's talking about Al Tikra Shanim Ela Shnayim. Don't call it Shanim, like colorful, but call it instead Shnayim, which is two. What is the two referring to? It's referring to the two of the osos that we have, the signs that we have that show that we're Jewish, right? Two of them that's what it's referring to. Which two? The sign of Shabbos and the sign of Mila. Okay? Circumcision. What does that have to do with Sarah Imenu? Right? And it says that it's also talking about Sarah Imenu. What does that have to do with Sarah Imenu? And then it goes on to say, Sadin Asavatim Karvat, that Sadin, a sheet, that she was a Sadin in modern Hebrew means a sheet. Over here it means a precious garment that she made. And what is it talking about? It's talking about circumcision. So what does that have to do with her? It has nothing to do with her. So he goes on to explain in order to understand this, we have to understand what the woman really brings to the household. Okay, we know from a Mishnah that says it's very clear that the woman is considered the house. The household is the woman, right? So that's why it says when the Kohen Gadol is about to go ahead and bring to go to Yom Kippur and to pray for atonement, it says that that the only way that he can do it is if he has a wife. If his wife passed away, he can't do it because it says he has to daven. The first thing that he davens for is for his household, right? And the Gemara learns out. Mishnah says it very clearly that Ishto Zobesa, that his wife is the house. So if he doesn't have a wife, he can't be. He's not considered he can't be a Kohen Gadol, right? Rapal can't be a Kohen Gadol. He has to have a wife, and therefore, if he doesn't have a wife, he has to get married to another wife. He has to before he becomes. That's right. The Gemara says Ishto Zobesa, Ishto Zobesa, right? What?
The mission about Kippur should marry a second house.
Right, in Yuma, right? It's Ishto Zobesa. Okay, so therefore, we see that all the Gashmius, we know that, and guys, Bezat Hashem, you're going to get all married in the right time very soon for those people that need it. There's Richter Gezivik and the Richter Zeit. So and that goes for you, David Yosef, also. Amen. So the fact is that we have to know that our bracha, the bracha in our household, comes from the wife. Okay, so if we don't have bracha in the household, we have to realize that are we treating our wife properly? Okay, and actually the Rambam says a whole list of he says 31 words. I think it's 31 words, which are the ways that we have to treat our wife. Okay, it says after that he says how a wife should treat her husband, but he first says how a husband should treat the wife, and after both of these halachos, which altogether is probably about 60 words, right? He says he gives a promise that we'll have a good life together and that it'll be praiseworthy, right? So a couple years ago, my son, one of our sons actually introduced me to a sefer. He actually bought it for me, which is called the sefer called Amudei Shiva. Amudei Shiva is a sefer about the halacha of the Rambam, meaning, and only the halacha from the man to the wife, what the man has to do for the woman. And this whole sefer is based on the 31 words of the Rambam. And I have it in that room. I can show you. It is amazing how from 31 words, it reminds me of my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yochanan's wife. He should have a refuah shalema. Yochanan Moshe ben Miriam. Forgot the mother's name. But in Miami Beach. And he used to learn the Rambam like we would learn Torah. Like mamish, every word, every letter. Why did the Rambam say it? It must be, it's holy, holy. And so too, this sefer happens to be in Litvish yeshivas, right? Totally Litvish yeshivas, but it's written by the Chedina Rav, which makes me very happy, right? That they're teaching it to these boys how to treat their wives, and it's coming from the Chedina Rav, which is Chassidish sefer. So the whole sefer is in Yusuf on 31 words. 31 words of the Rambam. Anyway, so we know that all the bracha comes from the woman, and that means the bracha of ruchnius and the bracha of gashmius. Not just gashmius, not just the physical and the livelihood, but also the spiritual comes from the wife. So therefore, that means that the fact that there's any spiritual going on, it comes from the wife, meaning the Shabbos, the circumcision, anything, right? And then we see something before we answer the other question about the field being purchased, even though she wasn't alive anymore at that point.
When you're single,
Yeah.
where does it come from when you're single?
Ah, very good question.
From your future
So-
wife, your mother.
So that's a very
I was like treating you right now.
actually it talks about. I know it talks about that for a woman before she gets married, it comes from the father, and after she gets married, it comes from the her zechus comes from the husband, right? The bracha comes from the woman. So I would assume that it goes according to the person's zechus up till he's married, right?
Also, it comes from himself.
Right. It comes as chus of his own merits up to he's married, but I'm not certain. But and afterwards, once he gets married, then the shefa really comes in. And by the way, there's the contradiction, you could say, a seeming. There's no contradiction in the Torah, but it could be seemingly a contradiction in the Torah when we see that on the one hand we know when a person gets divorced, right? There's the Shekhinah is crying, right? There's tears in the mizbeach, right? But on the other hand, there's a mitzvah to have a divorce if needed. What's going on? Seems to be a contradiction. So the answer I heard from a friend of mine in Baltimore, Noah Shavrik, he told me that I think it's from the Zohar, that it says that when two people aren't getting along, right? And it's what's happening is when they get along, then there's bracha, right? And there's shefa coming down, the tzinor, the pipe, it's coming down shefa, right? All the goodness. But once they're not getting along, it's like the pipes are clogged and they don't have, the shefa's not coming through. So therefore, there's a mitzvah to have a get, a krisus, of separating between the two, and then exactly clearing out the blockage, and then therefore each one has their own shefa again. Okay, so therefore I think from that, maybe to answer your question, Shimi, is maybe the fact that it is that their own zchus comes back again. They have shefa. You know what I'm saying? But again, I'm not certain. Okay, so now, if we look, before we answer the question about the field, we're going to see there's a pasuk that says later on, I think it's the end of the sixth parsha, it says, "Vayosef Abram v'yikach isha u'shma keturah." Okay, and Abram added on, right? And he took a woman, and her name was Keturah, which Medrash says that it's Hagar, right? And he married her, right? And before that, it says 2 times Hashem mentions, it could be there's more, but I know that the Nesivos Shalom brings down 2 times where Hashem says to Avram, when he changes Sarah's name from Sarai to Sarah, he says to her, Sarai ishtecha, Sarai, your wife. Now, there's no extra words in the Torah. Why does it say Sarai, your wife? And then later on it says, Sarai ishtecha yoledes. Right? I think that the Sarai, your wife, will give birth, right? So it says again, your wife. Well, it's obvious. We know that it's your wife, and the Torah doesn't have any extra words. What's going on over here? So the Mepharshim say, Nesivos Shalom brings down that what it means is that she's always the wife, no matter what, even after she passes. Okay? She is, and therefore that explains the last pasuk where it talks about that he added on to have another wife. What does it mean he added one? Because she's not alive anymore. It's not adding one. It was because once she was his wife, she was always the imos are matriarchs. They had nitzchis. They had eternity in a sense that therefore that once they were the wife of our forefathers, they were always the wife, and it didn't stop. And therefore, we can understand that just like they had eternity for that, so they also had eternity to be able to have, because of her, to purchase the land. Because if it wasn't for her, the land wouldn't be able to be purchased.
The chef is still coming down.
Right. It's still become from her, right? And we see that at the end, at one point in the Parsha, it says, "Vashem berach es Abraham." Hashem blessed Abraham. So the question is, why does it say that? Right? The reason why it says that is that it's very interesting because the Ba'ei Olam, people would come and say that, you know what? It's possible we could say that all the bracha of Avram came from Sarah. So therefore, Hashem says, no, don't think that it was only Sarah. Avram had a lot to do with it too, right? So it says, that's why it says, Hashem berach es Avram, that Hashem blessed Avram. That, because people might say that it's all only from Sarah, and therefore that's why it says otherwise. Okay. Now at the end, he ends off. A lot of times he mentions Shabbos, bringing down whatever he's talking about till now to bring it down practically to us and how we can, apply it to our own lives. He brings down Shabbos and he brings down Eretz Yisrael a lot of times, but here he's bringing down Shabbos, and he says this thing of Eshet Chayil. It's we understand it to be not only referring to Sorah Imenu, but it is we sing it on Leil Shabbos. Why do we sing it on Leil Shabbos? Because the different the Abu Dharam brings it down, and other Sfarim bring it down that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like the Chassan, like the groom, and the Shabbos is like the Kala, the bride. Okay, and when it says like our neighbor down the hill, Rosh Shlomo Alkabetz says L'Chadodi, when he wrote the L'Chadodi, right? He says L'Chadodi Likras Kala, and the translation of Kala is Shabbos Hamalka, the Shabbos queen. Okay, Shabbos that's for Malav Malka. Right, David Malka Mashiach Melech. Whereas David, but I think, yeah, it could be. I don't know. Well, David Malka Mashiach is because David Melech, David Melech Mashiach. That's because Malka Mashiach is referring to Aramaic.
Yeah, Malka is Aramaic.
Aramaic is Malka is Melech. So, but David Melech Mashiach, that is Melech Mashiach. But I don't know. It could be also referring to that. I don't know, because we do have Sudas David Melech, which is the Mlav and Malka, right? So anyway, it could be. I just first thing I thought of, because it is. I'm pretty sure you can look in a siddur. I'm pretty sure it's spelled with an aleph, not a hey. And if it's spelled with an aleph, it's Aramaic, and that would mean Melech. Anyway, so therefore, l'chadodi l'kras kala, right? That we are going together and we're welcoming the Shabbos Hamalka, and that is also, as the Nesivos Shalom brings it another place, but he also says he mentions it here, but not as in depth, that all the bracha comes from Shabbos, right? And the Baal Chadodi also says it. It says in the Chadodi, Likra Shabbos l'chuven elcha ki mekar bracha, that to greet Shabbos, go and we shall go, because it is the source of all blessing, right? Shabbos is the source of all blessing, and we know that there was actually a friend of mine, Shmuel Fisher, told me, in the name was Rashiva from Riverdale. He said that what's shot that it says l'chuven elcha. The Roshel Malkovitz, the Baal Chadodi, he says, "Go and we shall go." Why does it say two words? Go and we shall go. It means that we should go and greet Shabbos. Go and we shall go, meaning quickly. That we should be the ones greeting Shabbos, and Shabbos shouldn't greet us. Meaning we should be early, right? And what does that mean?
Is that why they used to go out in the fields?
What?
Is that why they used to go out into the fields?
What do you mean? How?
Get to greet Shabbos instead of
Okay,
out.
okay, could be, very well, could be. But it says Kihi Mekar Bracha. The reason why I have to go out and greet Shabbos is because it's the source of all blessings. Meaning, think about it. A lot of times somebody has a deal to close, right? And you go ahead and I'm going to make sure just one more deal right before Shabbos. One more deal. One more, and you're we're not talking about somebody, God forbid, desecrating Shabbos. We're just talking about another deal, another making that you could have gotten ready.
Like concluding something.
Yeah, concluding something or something. And then basically you're just going to be, you might be a little late getting ready, but you're not going to be desecrating Shabbos. We're not talking about that. So that is wrong, because not only, if you think about it, you say, what's the big deal? I know I'm not going to desecrate Shabbos, but if that's the whole, if the blessing comes from Shabbos, what are we doing? We're taking away from our, menucha nefesh, of our just being relaxed, coming into Shabbos relaxed, as opposed to coming into Shabbos, with lachatz, with pressure, right? So therefore, and not only that, if we really believe, right, that it all comes from Shabbos, then we don't have nothing to worry about. Right away, we have to go ahead and realize it's time for Shabbos. Whatever time it takes me to get ready, give myself an extra hour, just in case. You never know what's going to happen, right? And not only that, the Nesivos Shalom says that if all bracha comes from Shabbos, so that includes ruchnius and gashmius. It includes spiritual and also physical, right? So which part of Shabbos do we get the spiritual from, and which part of Shabbos do we get the physical from, the livelihood, right? So the answer, he says, is that from the second that Shabbos starts, right, which we don't know, that's why we add to Shabbos, right? Mm-hmm. The second the Shabbos starts until the second the Shabbos ends, that's when the spiritual, right? That whole time is spiritual. So then where is the physical, and the materialistic, right? Where is that? It is from anything that you're adding at the beginning and adding at the end. Mm. So whatever you add to Shabbos, and you bring out Shabbos, you bring in Shabbos early, and you take out Shabbos late. You wait 72 or 90 minutes, you take out Shabbos late, you daven here at Sands, you don't have any problem, right? So you get more bracha. That's where your bracha is coming from. So that's where the whole bracha of Parnasa is coming from, right? The whole Shabbos itself is the ruchnius. It's the spiritual. But the rest of the stuff is only, and I have a story that comes to illustrate this. I think it's the name, I forget his name, but I think it's Visions of Greatness. There's a story written there, a true story that happened probably pre World War II, when people came to America, and they used to get fired every week because they didn't come in for Shabbos. They used to get fired every week, right? They used to get every week or every other week they would get fired, right? And so what happened was, there was this guy in the story. He says Mr. Friedman, but he says asterisk on the side. He wants to. It's not the actual name. He wanted to, but the true story that happened, that Mr. Friedman goes ahead and he can't take this anymore, quitting it and trying to find another job every week. So he says he's going to do something which was very, very risky. He was going to open up his own business, right? He didn't have money, capital. What is he going to do? Where is he, and he's just, coming from Europe. What is he going to do? He decided to open up a curtain business, okay? But one thing that he decided was that that he is going to open up this business and he's going to make sure that 12 o'clock, I don't know if it was chatzos or 12 o'clock, but it was definitely not later than 12 o'clock because nowadays, in the wintertime, it gets earlier than 12. But he would always stop no matter what time. He would stop and that's it. Even if it was Shabbos in at 7 o'clock, didn't matter. At 12 o'clock, he'd stop. This was his thing that he would do. One time, this limousine pulls up, and it was about 11 o'clock on it was 11 o'clock on Friday morning, and he says, he welcomes the guy in, and the guy's telling him that he wants to get me an order, and I have a lot of places, a lot to put curtains on because it's a hotel or a chain of hotels, I don't know. And I want to see give me a sample. And he says, listen, I can give you all the time after Shabbos. Right now I have a short amount of time and I'm closing up the store. He says, you're closing up the store? What's the matter with you? It's 11 o'clock. He says, I know. He says, but I have to close at 12. He says, why do you have to close at 12? You have plenty of time. So he goes and he starts explaining to him about Shabbos. And he says, listen, how long have you been in business? He says, a few weeks. He says, you have a good customer right here. That how many customers do you have? He says, well, I didn't have that many. He says, are you out of your mind? He's like, I'm a big customer. What are you doing? So he says, I understand, and I know it doesn't make sense to you, but this is what I decided, and I'm not changing. He says, you're crazy. He was making fun of the guy. He says, and trying to convince him otherwise. The guy was not budging. Mr. Friedman didn't budge. He says, but I'll be here Saturday night, and I can after Shabbos I can come, and I can deal with you as much time as you want. He says, you're crazy, this and that. He leaves at 12 o'clock, and that's it. So after Shabbos, he thought for sure this guy's not going to be there. He sees the limousine waiting there. And he's actually waiting. He says, I thought you're mad at me. You told me I'm crazy. Like, what's going on? Why did you hear? He says, you know what? I had thought about it, and I wasn't going to come back. But I decided that it doesn't make sense. Here you were going for this Shabbos thing that you call, and it's untangible. It's your God that's not tangible, right? And you're you have such integrity to that. I figured I want to do business with you.
Yeah.
And he became very rich because not only this guy was happy with him, he went and told people about him, and he became very, very rich. So, Hagufo, what we think that we're going to make another deal. No. The real deal is Shabbos. And we should all be zocha to really, really keep Shabbos the way we should. And Taka, as I heard from Rabbi Aluna Nava today, that, it's obvious that everybody knows about it from 30 some years ago from Mordechai David, but it's even from many years before that, from the Yerushalmi says that if all Jews keep one Shabbos, we'll have the Geula. So the fact is that the reason why the Geula is not here is because all Jews didn't keep one Shabbos. That's the Bavli. Bavli says 2, but Yerushalmi says 1. That's the Makar of just one Shabbos will open 3. That's the Makar. Anyway, what? What?
Everyone that keeps.
I said all Jews.
I'm saying it's like
All Jews.
never know that Jews in the world. It's like, where are you?
I'm saying all Jews. That's what I said. Okay? Bezat Hashem, we should all be zocha. We really need a geula. And Bezat Hashem, we should see it. We should all be able to have this chus to greet Mashiach.